Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am back today to share with you guys what I think is going to be a really fun video. We're going to do kind of a duel, like a drugstore versus high-end makeup battle. I've gone through my entire makeup collection. I picked out some of my very favorite high-end makeup products, some of my most expensive makeup products, and then I've gone through my drugstore collection and tried to find either duplicates or alternatives to the high-end makeup, and we're going to put them on side by side and see if the drugstore can compete with the high-end. Some of these are spot-on dupes, some of them I've known about for a while, and some of them I just discovered while going through my collection and trying to find things, so I can't wait to share it with you guys today. Hope you guys are excited about it as well. Before we jump into the video, I want to give a special welcome to those of you that are new to my channel. Thank you for joining me today. I'm very happy to have you here. I hope that you enjoy this video, and if you do, please consider subscribing and make sure that notification bell is turned on. And with that said, we do have a lot of makeup, like double a lot of makeup to put on today, so let's jump right into it. Alright you guys, so I have my two piles of makeup. I have my drugstore on this side, my high-end on this side. Honestly, they're like in two perfect little piles. I even have two sponges and different sets of eyeshadow brushes to keep things really official. So we're gonna do the high-end on the left side of my face, the drugstore on the right side of my face. I'll go through and apply things one step at a time. We'll do the high-end and then we'll do the drugstore, back and forth until we get done with the makeup look. I'm hoping I can keep that dividing line nice and perfect. And I will be telling you guys which products I'm using, so it's not going to be a surprise. But I am going to wait to the end to do the reveal of the cost savings. Like, we'll do the ticket price at the high-end side and the total ticket price of the drugstore side and see how different they are. I imagine they're going to be quite different. So let's start off with the high-end side. We're going to start with the primer. Today I'm going to use my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. You guys know this is a favorite product of mine. I have been using it more as a primer lately. I used to only exclusively use this as a liquid highlighter because it just seems like too fancy and expensive of a product to cover up with foundation, but it is a really nice primer if you like something hydrating and glowy. So I'm just going to use my sponge to apply this on this side of my face, and I just used one little swipe of the, what is it, doe foot? I forgot what a doe foot was called for a sec. So Charlotte Tilbury, $44 for the full size, and on the right side we're going to take the Maybelline 4-in-1 Perfector. I do think this is a really good product. Every time I talk about it I mention how much I don't like the packaging of it. I definitely don't think it's quite as creamy and smooth and thick and rich as the Charlotte Tilbury. It kind of separates just a little bit more than the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, but once it's on your skin I feel like it's pretty similar. So sorry, I just kind of like squeezed a little out of there. I'm going to apply this with my other sponge. Okay, let's move on to foundation. So for the high-end side, I picked my NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. I am a big fan of this foundation. It wears really well on me. It is a little pricey though. It's $49, so I'm going to take 2 pumps of this foundation, which I think is going to be just about right for one side of my face. I find that I have to use, when I'm just using this alone, I have to use about 4 pumps of it because not very much product comes out in just one pump. But I really like how this wears, how much coverage it gives me. It gives me really good, solid, medium coverage, I would say. And it doesn't settle into any of my fine lines, which I love. I love that about it. Okay, and then on the right side of my face, I'm going to go with my L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation. This one actually wears similarly to the NARS. I think this one is a little bit more liquidy, but I would say they both have pretty equal coverage, and also the shade matches are pretty darn close. I think the NARS might be just like a half of a half. Wait, did I get that right? The L'Oreal is like a 1/4 of a shade lighter than the NARS. The NARS is just a little bit darker on me, but not much. I imagine these will look pretty much the same once I get them on my skin. I do think maybe the NARS is just a little bit more hydrating. I find the L'Oreal, if I don't have really good moisturizer on or a good hydrating primer underneath, that one can dry out my skin just a little bit, or I can kind of feel it like dry on my skin later on in the day, like an hour after it sets down, but generally speaking, it's not a problem for me. Okay, so there is foundation. L'Oreal on this side, which is $14. NARS on this side, which is $49. For my concealer, on the high-end side, we're going to take my Tarte Ultra Creamy Concealer. This one I have in the shade 22N Light Neutral. Boy, I still have like mascara particle remnants coming off of my lashes from my mascara yesterday. By the way, my mascara, I have lost my Thrive Cosmetics mascara, which you guys know it's baseball season right now. I talk about this all the time, but that is my baseball mascara. It's my spring watery eye windy weather mascara. So I've been trying to find other mascaras that I can use that will be really nice and long wearing, and actually the one that I'm really loving that's really long wearing, surprisingly, or water resistant, is the Sky High mascara. I knew this one was really hard to take off, but I never thought that it might be watery eye resistant, but it's been working really well for me and my watery eyes. So really quickly before I blend that in, I also want to put on my eyeshadow primer at the same time, and on the high end side we're going to use my Urban Decay Primer Potion. This is just the original version. I kind of like to apply these at the same time if I am using an eyeshadow primer, which I don't always. I kind of like 50-50. Sometimes I just let my concealer be my eyeshadow primer, but if I really want a long wear out of my eyeshadow, or I'm worried about creasing, maybe if I, again, am watching sports, or if I just have a long day, I will put a layer of eyeshadow primer on. I do think it helps to prolong my eyeshadow wear and keep me from getting that like crease line right there in my socket. Over on the right side, we are going to use my e.l.f. Cosmetics Hydrating Camo Concealer. I'm actually going to use two shades because I don't have a proper shade, because initially I bought the wrong shade, the shade too light, so I went back and bought one deliberately too dark for me. I could find one shade, so we're just going to count it as one product even though I'm actually using two. And I mean that for when we tally things up at the end, but I'm just going to kind of take this on the back of my hand initially, a little swipe of each one, because these two shades together are going to give me the perfect shade match. By the way, the two shades I'm using are Medium Sand, this darker one, and Fair Warm, this lighter one right here. So we're going to mix those two shades together with my finger, and then I'm going to just use my finger to kind of pop this where I need it. I do have more things to cover on this side of my face, so does that make things not quite so fair? I have a lot more hyperpigmentation on the right side of my face than I do on the left side of my face, funny enough. And I also have a blemish right here developing on my forehead. I'm going to add my Wet n Wild eyeshadow primer on this eye. Just add that with my finger. And then we're going to take my other sponge and blend out this concealer first. Alright, that looks great. Let's move on to the cheek products. So we're going to start with the bronzer, and on the high-end side, I picked my Hourglass Luminous Bronze Light bronzer. This one is pretty pricey. This thing is $56 full price. That seems even more expensive than what I paid for it. Honestly, I've had this thing for a while, so I could be wrong. Maybe it's always been that much, but I did notice as I was looking at prices on some of these things, there's been some price raises in a lot of things, which I guess shouldn't surprise me. I know everything right now is really expensive, but so we're going to put this one on the left side of my face. I'm just using my Rephr number 22 bronzer brush. I'm going to use the same brushes for my cheek products. We'll just wipe them off really well in between. This is a really warm bronzer for me. I actually generally prefer this specific bronzer shade when I am a little bit more tan, like in the late spring, summertime, but it's still really pretty. Alright, so I'm going to give that a really good wipe here on my clean towel, and then we're going to move over to the affordable side. This might be the largest price difference in anything that I have today. I went with my Wet n Wild Color Icon bronzer in Sunset Striptease. Surprisingly, when I swatched these side by side, they were pretty similar. I think the Wet n Wild one might be just a tiny bit darker than the Hourglass, but I do think this finish on these two is pretty similar. They both have a nice, like, soft, luminous glow to them. Try and be a little bit more light-handed with the Wet n Wild side. I really do love this Wet n Wild bronzer. It's one that I reach for very often, as you can tell by the pan that I have hit. This is one I definitely will repurchase when it finally runs out, or I get a nice healthy amount of pan showing. Alright, so there's bronzer. What do you guys think? $56 on this side, $5.79 on this side. Not bad if you ask me. Let's move on to blush. So for my blush, I also picked an Hourglass blush. I have the mini version, which was only $26, but this thing is awfully tiny. I do really love this blush. And I will say, I think the finish of this one is going to be slightly more luminous and nice than the drugstore one that we'll get to in a sec, but color-wise, I think they're pretty similar. So we're gonna go with the Mood Exposure blush. This mini, by the way, is $26. The full size would be $43. We're gonna apply this on the left side of my face. This is one of my favorite shades of blush. This is like one of those blush shades that looks good any time of year with any makeup look ever. It just always, always looks pretty. Okay, wiping off my brush really well. We're gonna go over to the right side, and the blush that I picked is the Essence The Blush blush in the shade Befitting. It has been a while since I've reached for this blush, and it's one of the best bang for your buck blushes at the drugstore. They're so, so good. The packaging is terrible. As you can see, the lid's already fallen off, but I think we all know that's kind of what you pay for with drugstore makeup. I think the makeup itself is often as good as high-end. The packaging almost never is, though. Okay, so there's the blush. We have Essence on this side, $4.99. Actually, no, $3.99. And then Hourglass on this side, $25, $43 if you go for the full size. Next up is highlighter, and for my high-end highlighter, I picked my Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Highlighting Powder in the shade 01. This has been a newly discovered love for me. You can still get this, I believe, on Sephora's website, and it's a little on the pricey side. It's $45. I was fortunate enough to find mine at a Marshall's, I believe. And I love it. It's super, super natural without being too natural. Like, it's very, I don't know, very refined and very like mature skin friendly, but it's still there. It's not so natural that you can't see it. I don't know what to do about the center of my nose. I might go down the center of my nose with both products because I just don't think I can, I don't know, I guess I could wipe off this part. Yeah, we'll do that. Probably just wiped off all my foundation, but that's all right. Then for the drugstore side, I went with the Essence Pure Nude, $4.99 for this thing. These remind me so much of each other. The swatches, when I swatched them side by side, this one is a little bit shade-wise, like a half a shade, tiny bit deeper than the Laura Mercier, but they look almost identical on the skin, so we're gonna just go with it today. Finish-wise, they have the exact same natural, but still not too natural finish. I don't know how to explain that. It's like barely there, but very there at the same time. Like a lot of my descriptions are very contradictory. Okay, so there we have highlighter. So far we're looking pretty good. I was worried about the cheeks, you guys, but I feel like, I don't know, I'm not seeing much of a difference. So let's move over to the brows. For the high-end side of my face, I have my Anastasia Brow Freeze here. This is $23. I love this stuff. And I will say, the alternative that I have, I don't quite think is a dupe for the Anastasia. I've used these a lot side by side over the last couple of months, and I just think the Anastasia one has just a little bit more hold than the affordable version that we'll get to in a sec, that I'm sure you guys can probably guess if you watch my other videos. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and swipe it through my brow, and then we're going to take a little spoolie. This is just my ColourPop spoolie, and I'm going to brush it through, and then we're going to add my pencil on top. Okay, and now the pencil for the high-end side, I'm going to take the Precisely My Brow from Benefit. I actually have like a gift version. This came in like a bonus set, so I don't have the fancy full-size version, but I know this is the same pencil, and this one is in the shade 3. The full-size version of this is $24. I do think it's a really good brow pencil. It does last really well, but I think I have a great dupe for this one. Alright, now on the drugstore side, I have my e.l.f. Brow Lift. This is similar to the Brow Freeze. It's just not quite as strong. If you feel these side by side, you'll feel that this is just not quite as tacky and sticky as the Brow Freeze, but it does work really well. So if you're really on a budget, I mean, the difference is pretty small, I would say, and you probably just have to use a little bit more product with the e.l.f. one than you would with the Anastasia Brow Freeze. Again, I'm just brushing this through my brows, making sure it's nice and even, making sure I don't have too much product in there. I think I might have went in a little bit heavy, a little bit too heavy on this side, but that's okay. Just brush it take a minute to brush it out, and should take care of that. And for the brow pencil on the drugstore side, I've got my Ulta Beauty Ultra Slim Brow Pencil in Ash Taupe. Great pencil, definitely my go-to. I think this one's every bit as good as the Benefit. Lasts well, great color. Great stiffness and formula. And that's really all you need. I find that works really well. Once in a while, if I'm like really going for like a hurricane-proof brow, I'll put a little bit of clear brow gel on top, but I don't really find that you need it for just every day. Let's just move on to eyeshadow. So on the high-end side, the eyeshadow palette that I picked is the Natasha Denona Mini Nude Palette. I love this thing. It's $25, which I could have gone way more expensive for an eyeshadow palette, but you guys wait till you see the dupe that I found for this one, or the near dupe that I suspect is going to give us a very, very similar look at a fraction of the price. I can't wait to show it to you guys. But first off, let's go with this one. I'm going to start off with my Rephr #1 brush. We're going to go into this camel color. We're just doing a very, very simple, basic look today. I'm just going to start off by building this up through the crease. This palette gives me a really basic, simple look, but it's one of those like simple looks that always looks very polished and put together. Okay, so we're gonna do this step by step. So I'm gonna show you guys what I have for my drugstore side, and that is the e.l.f. Cream and Sugar palette. I was so surprised as I was swatching this palette. Initially, I actually found two different palettes from Essence. These two palettes right here, the Nothing Compares to Nude and the Coral Me Maybe palettes. These could give me a similar look, but then I swatched this one and realized, you know what? Those shades are pretty darn close. Obviously, this one only has 4 shades. This one has 5, but the 4 that it has are almost identical to these. So I have very high hopes for this. We're gonna go in with this transition shade right here. This one is a little bit lighter, and for that I'm going to take my Wayne Goss number 18 brush, hoping that this shade isn't too light. It's definitely lighter than the other side. In fact, I'm thinking I might dip that into a tiny bit of the shimmery shade, try and knock off some of that shimmer, and go back to the cream, see if I can get a similar color through my crease. Okay, so that works a little better. You definitely need to go into the shimmer right here. Now for the lower lash line, I think I'm going to use the same brush. Let's start off with the affordable side. We're going to take those 2 shades again, this bronze right here, this matte shade right here, and run that just under the lower lash line. Now I'm going to wipe off that brush. We're going to go back into the Natasha Denona, dip into that camel color again, and run that under the lower lash line on the left. Okay, that's pretty close. Now let's jump over to the, actually let's smoke out the outer corner first. We're going to dip into the dark matte brown here. For that I'm going to take my Rephr number 13 brush. We're going to tap that into that matte brown and run this right along the lash line. And then slowly just work it up and in through that outer corner and crease. Very easy. Now I'm going to take my Rephr number 14 brush back over to the Cream and Sugar palette. We're going to dip it into this dark brown right here, which is a little bit more just basic chocolatey. The other one has a little bit more warmth or red in it, but hopefully these will look similar. Okay, there it is. Let's jump over to the high-end side and go with the bronze. We're going to take this bronze in the corner. It's the warmer, more copper tone bronze. And I'm going to take that on my ring finger and apply that on top of my lid from the, just inside that center mark towards the outer corner. Then I'm going to take a clean finger and kind of run it along that front edge to kind of blend it out so we can overlap. And then, wiping that finger off, I'm going over to the Cream and Sugar palette. We're going to dip into the bronze in this one and do the same thing on this side. From the center mark to the outer half of the lid and clean finger. I'm going to blend that out there at that inner edge. And now we're going to jump over to the high-end side. We're going to take the Champagne in the center of this Natasha Denona. And just using my pinky finger, I'm carefully going to place that right here on the inner corner and tap it towards the center to overlap that bronze. And same on the other side, my other pinky finger in the Champagne. And again, just carefully place that right in the center. This one might even be a little bit brighter. Okay, there we go. Last thing I'm going to do is just take a tiny little detail brush. That's my Rephr number 3. We're going to take that Champagne on the e.l.f. side. I just need a tiny bit of this. We're going to run this right just on this inner kind of V tear duct. Same on the Natasha Denona side. Wiped it off, and now we're going to go. Okay, there's the finished eyeshadow. Pretty close. I don't think they're identical, but I think they both look really good. When we get to the end, I'll show you guys a close-up so you can see some of the minor differences, but we are going to move on to an eyeliner. I actually don't have a high-end eyeliner. I don't even really own one other than my Natasha Denona gel liner, so I'm just going to take a little bit of my Wet n Wild Simma Brown now on both eyes. I'm just going to run this along the upper waterline. Just feel like I need a little bit of depth on my waterline. So there we have it, guys. $25 on this side, $3 on this side. That's a pretty massive price difference. I still think the Natasha Denona one, as far as performance, there are a couple things about it that are a little bit better. Even just the formulas of them I think are a little bit more pigmented, more blendable. The tones are just a little bit more spot on. But that said, I still think this is a beautiful look for a fraction of the price. So you're not going to be missing much. If you can't justify splurging for the $25 mini palette, I think you'll be perfectly happy with the $3 palette from e.l.f. So now moving on to mascara. For the high-end side, I picked my IT Cosmetics Superhero Mascara. This one's going to set you back $26. And for my affordable side, I picked the Essence Lash Princess Mascara, which is only $4.99. So I'm going to apply a couple of coats to both of my lashes, then I'll come back and we will finish off with just, I think, the lips, and then we'll be done. And here are the finished eyes, complete with mascara. Again, you guys, $4.99 for the Essence Mascara, $26 for the IT Cosmetics Mascara. I had not realized until just putting these on together how very close these mascaras are. They're actually really, really similar to each other. Pretty impressive if you ask me. Let's move on to the lips. So on the left side of my face, we're going to start with a lip liner. One of my favorite high-end lip liners. It is the Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat Lip Liner. This one is in the shade Pillow Talk. I think Iconic Nude is my favorite shade, but I have a really good dupe in shade and actually closer in formula than I initially thought. I did a little test on the back of my hand, and I'm thinking that the formulas are actually somewhat similar as well. So we're going to start with this one on the left side of my lips. And lightly smudge that in or press it in with my finger. We're going to let it set there for a sec, and while we do that, I'm going to do a little test on the back of my hand. So here we're going to do a little swatch of the Charlotte Tilbury. That's the one all the way here on the outer edge. And then on the right side, we're going to try and dupe it with the LA Girl Ultimate Intense Wear Auto Liner. This one's in the shade Nonstop Nude. So we're going to apply that first to my lips, and then while we wait for it to set down, I'm going to do a little test on the back of my hand. So the shades of these are, surprisingly, as I found out this morning, very, very close. Again, I'm going to take a clean finger and just lightly kind of press that in. And then we're going to let that set. I want to swatch it now on the back of my hand next to the Charlotte Tilbury. So as you guys can see, look how close those shades are. They are so, so close. I think maybe, I mean, if I'm really trying to like be critical and split hairs, this LA Girl one is just a little bit deeper, a little bit tiny bit more like mauve-y in tone, but I mean they're almost identical. So we're gonna let those sit for a sec, and then I want to take another favorite of mine. This was the one that I initially was going to do this duplicate or this video with. It's the Milani 04 All Natural Lip Liner. Still love this lip liner, but I want to show you guys what I'm talking about as far as like long wear-ness. So I this morning did some swatches on the back of my hand, and when I went to wipe off the swatches, I noticed, number one, that the Charlotte Tilbury ones did not budge at all. These lip liners, they are absolutely budge proof. But the one that really surprised me that didn't budge very much either was the LA Girl. So I'm gonna, hopefully these are set down enough. Actually, before we go to wipe those off, I'm going to set a little mental reminder for myself. Let's move into the rest of the lips. We'll finish off with the lips. I'm going to show you guys kind of the wipe-off test, how these held up compared to the Milani. Now let's move on to the lipstick. I'm going to take my Charlotte Tilbury JK Magic lipstick. It's a very nice peachy nude. That's going to go on the high-end side. And then for the drugstore side, I have my Flower Beauty lipstick in Naked Blush. These ones, the shades might be slightly different. What do you think? Pretty close. I think this one might be a little bit more peach. This one a little bit more pink. Okay, now for lip gloss. This one I'm most excited about. I was so excited to find this possible dupe, although I'm still going to say I still stand behind this high-end lip gloss because there's so much product inside of it. I am, of course, talking about the Fenty Beauty lip gloss in the shade Sweet Mouth. It's one of my very favorites, has been for years and years, and the dupe that I have for it now is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss in the shade Opal. These are almost identical to each other. Now the Opal Gloss does not have nearly as much product inside. It has just 0.18 ounces in it, whereas the Fenty has 0.3 ounces, so almost double the amount of product. So as far as price per ounce, and I say this every time I bring up this gloss is actually not that expensive. Not that much more expensive than maybe even the Maybelline gloss, but we're still gonna do the side-by-side comparison because for those of you that maybe don't want to spend the $20, by the way, this is $20 on the Fenty, the Maybelline one is a lot more affordable. I think you can find this, especially if you buy it in store at like a Target or a Walmart, you can find it for closer to $8 or $9. These both smell really good, although they smell very different. This has a fruity smell, whereas the Lifter Gloss has like a vanilla cake smell. I'm not sure which one I like better. All right, there it is. So let's go over the lip products really quick one more time. So again, $24 for the Charlotte Tilbury lip liner, $37 for the high-end lipstick, and $20 for the high-end gloss. Then over on the drugstore side, we have $4.99 for the lip liner, $8.99 for the Flower Beauty lipstick, and $9.49. I think you can probably find this closer to $8 if you get it at like Target or Walmart, but on Ulta's website, $9.49 for the Maybelline lip gloss. So what do you guys think? Pretty close. Let's go back over to the swatches. So I'm going to take my little towel here. Again, we have the Charlotte Tilbury, the LA Girl, and then the Milani here at the end. So it's just a dry towel. I'm just going to wipe these. Check it out, you guys. See, the Milani one is gone. It did not take long, but both of these held up pretty well, which was really exciting because I've liked this lip liner for a long time, but I kind of forgot about it for a while, and in the meantime discovered the Charlotte Tilbury ones, and now that I've gone back to it, I'm just now realizing that this is actually quite a long wearing lip liner for a drugstore lip liner, considering the cost difference, so I'm pretty impressed and pretty hopeful that this is going to be a great dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury. So last thing is setting spray. So this one's going to be a little bit tricky. I think I'm just going to hold up my hand. For the high-end side, we're going to use my Urban Decay All Nighter Ultra Glow setting spray. This one is $33 for the full bottle. So I'm just going to put my hand here and kind of block off that side of my face. Hopefully this works. Then on the affordable drugstore side, we've got to go with one of my favorite affordable setting sprays. It is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh setting spray. This is $12. And I actually do think these perform quite similarly. Alright you guys, here is the finished makeup look. I will insert a little close-up here for you guys. Hopefully you can see things a little bit more closely. I'll try and turn my lights down a little bit so you can see the color differences. There are some differences. Really the only major difference that I saw today is in the eye look. And as the eyes are all put together now, I think it's very, very hard to point out or to notice. It was mainly on the application. I do think the Natasha Denona shadows go on a little bit more smooth and creamy, especially that darkest shade, which I think dark browns are really a little bit harder to do. I find the drugstore a lot of times has a harder time keeping them nice and rich and really easy to blend. But that said, I don't think the e.l.f. one by any means is bad. I'm really trying to like really split hairs here and tell you guys anything that I noticed a difference on. I do think this one was just a little bit trickier to work with, and I did like the undertone of the Natasha Denona one just a little bit better. Let me actually swatch those two shades side by side for you guys. So here is the Natasha Denona. Hopefully you'll be able to see just kind of some of the more red tone of this one when compared to this one, which is the e.l.f., which is a little bit more kind of charcoal in tone. See, when I turn it to the side, you can definitely see the undertone difference there. I also just feel like this one felt a little bit more dry, both to the touch and also as it was blending on the eyes. It was just a little bit harder to blend, but overall, I think the finished look is pretty spectacular. I think the bronze again on the Natasha Denona is maybe a little bit richer, but very, very minimal. I might actually even like the brightness of the tone of the e.l.f. champagne, maybe even more than the Natasha Denona if I'm being perfectly honest, or really kind of picking things apart. Overall though, I think everything performed so well. My eyebrows look identical, my cheeks I feel like look totally identical. Those are the ones I was kind of worried about because I didn't know if those bronzer shades were spot on or the blush shades, but overall I think everything looks great. I feel like this video is proof that you don't need to spend an absolute fortune on makeup to get a good look in the end, which I think is great news, especially right now when everything seems to be getting very expensive. Maybe you're looking to save some money on makeup, or maybe you're feeling left out when you see even me talk about high-end makeup. There's so much great drugstore makeup. If you don't mind packaging that's a little bit inferior, you can get fantastic makeup looks at the drugstore and at an affordable price. So let's talk about the price difference. For the price of the high-end left side of my face, a whopping $487 for all the products I put on today. That is shocking. That makes me quite nauseous. As for the drugstore right side of my face, a mere $108.25, and that is with everything, including primer, eyeshadow primer, setting spray, a lot of the steps that sometimes I actually skip. So the price difference between the two sides, the drugstore side saved me $378.75. That is insane. Think how many groceries you could buy for $378.75, or gas for that matter. You could fill up like 4 cars with that. And overall, I think the final makeup look, I am perfectly happy with the right side of my face. I think the drugstore side looks every bit as good as the high-end side. What did you guys think? Are you surprised at the side-by-side performance? What do you guys think of the finished look? Have you guys tried out some of these products side by side? And what do you think the differences are in drugstore versus high-end? Other than the packaging, I'm just talking about the performance of the makeup itself. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know down in the comments below. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video today. I had so much fun filming this. I knew that the drugstore side would do well. I didn't know it would do this well though. I think it looks so good. I'm so impressed. And as much as I love my high-end makeup, and honestly, as a makeup lover, as a creator of makeup videos for you guys, I always will test out some high-end makeup. But this is just a good reminder of like my roots. I am definitely a drugstore girl at my core. I know sometimes it might not seem like it, but as much as I love trying out high-end makeup, nothing makes me more excited than when I find really good performing drugstore or affordable makeup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you guys again for stopping by. I hope that you guys are all doing well. Let me give you one last reminder. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that before you leave. But that's all for now. Thank you guys again. I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye. I used my Oribe shampoo and conditioner today. Initially this morning I started off after I dried my hair, I thought I was having like the worst hair day ever. But now that it's kind of all dry and styled, I feel like my hair looks pretty healthy. I have very dry hair. Like my hair looks like horse hay, like in person and probably on camera too. It's just really dry. No matter what products I use, I do feel like it looks a little less hay-ish, like hay after the rainstorm. It was pretty funny. Some days, you guys, it's like I'm doing a comedy show for myself in front of the camera. Like I just laugh at my own stupid jokes because nobody else laughs at them. My kids sure don't. I'm hoping you're laughing. Don't tell me if you're not. Just pretend like you are.